golden light slipped through the wooden crack, caught on the loop of black smoke. The man, smelling of coal, pushed the empty can with the tip of his boot. I stood on the porch, knowing tonight someone would collapse and someone would choose to stand. The horse had bitten the bit. The saddle strap bore knife marks. An embroidered scarf, strange, would turn the story's course. If enough nerve, go on. Morning gold filtered through the wooden crack, thin as a thread. That light cut diagonally across the room, then stuck, striking a smoke stain on the wall. That smoke stain was round, like the mouth of an upturned bowl, dark at the rim, pale inside. I looked at it first, then only looked at her. She lay close to the floor, her back askew from the thin blanket, head resting against the table leg, braced with a brick. Lips dry, cracked across, red into a bruised streak in the middle. Her eyes were open, but not seeking anyone. Eyes only held onto the speck of light, as if waiting for it to go out, so she would not have to look anymore. I stood in the door's shadow, resting an arm on the frame, my sleeve brushing with a faint sound. Outside, the horse rope sometimes tapped the post. A clack, then silence. Inside, the smell of old ash mixed with damp wood walls. No medicine smell, no sick smell, only the smell of fire long gone. The man stepped in after me. His boots pressed into the grooves of the floor. The wood sighed like breath. He did not touch my shoulder. Passing by, his coat rustled once, leaving the scent of dry coal and wind from the fields. He placed his hat on the hook. The strap knocked lightly on the wall. Then he stood a beat, eyes not stopping on her, not on me, but stopping at the speck of light, just touching the round smoke mark. No one spoke. Only the sound of his breath, taken in short. The smell of ash in the room seemed to pull back, making way for the wind scent he carried in his lungs. He bent down, picked up the blanket, pushed aside, pulled it to her shoulder. The movement sharp, neat, without comfort. Outside, a crow called twice, like testing its throat, then flew. The golden light shifted a little with the draft, dropped on her wrist bone, stopped at the shallow pulse. She blinked once, then no more. He did not ask, only turned to the corner, picked up the old water can prop corner. I saw her ring finger curl slightly, then stretch out as if she tested a thought and let it go. He pulled a chair, sat with half his weight, both hands open on his thighs. He looked down at his boot tip. The boot tip looked down at the straws caught in the seam. I looked at the can. Inside was liquid sound, but very little, as if tipped hard it might only wet a corner of cloth. The wind shifted. The door sucked in, then pushed out. The cloth curtain at the window rubbed the glass with a tired drag. The rope outside at the pen stretched tight, then slack. I turned, leaned full into the frame to give way for the draft. He reached for the dented tin cup on the shelf. He tapped its rim, let the dust fall, then loosened a hemp knot on the can. Rope rasped, metal struck in scattered notes. He tilted the can, poured just enough to line the cup's bottom. Water fell, sound soft like pebbles dropping on fur. He did not hand it straight to her, only set it at the edge of her sight. half an elbow from her hand. She turned her face away, just a fraction, not far, enough for the cup to leave her line. I saw the scar on her cheek, so old it had turned lighter than skin. On her neck, a hemp cord tied into a loop, frayed end as if once chewed. I did not ask where it came from. He rose, picked up the iron tube rolling on the table, twisted the cap shut, placed it square in the corner. That act shifted the whole room a little, like a crooked picture set straight. He bent, picked up a splinter of wood, threw it into the basket. No sigh, no complaint. Only things to be done when seen askew. I heard my stomach growl. He did not turn. I did not speak. In this land, men seldom ask why, especially when their hands still smell of coal. On the porch, wind passed through the posts, passed with habit. The third post rattled first, then the fifth, like someone counting off beat. The smell of burnt grass drifted in with old horse dung. I knew at the yard's low corner near the trough, that smell always clung, even after rain. The man lit a fire. He did not keep his back straight. He bent low, like one who had lived through a hard winter and learned smoke follows a man's back. Match struck. Fire licked the head, blue for a beat, then yellow, small as a thumbnail. He fed sticks half peeled of bark, blew softly, not greedy. Flame caught. Its light did not beat the gold through the crack, only made the hearth glow more. He shifted the flue within reach, turned its mouth so smoke went up the roof, not back down. Smoke obeyed at once. It went. She turned her back. The motion, like someone told her, switch sides, without sound. Her face turned from the gold outside, her back faced the fire. Breath steadied, not deep, not shallow. Her spine clear under the thin cloth, the third vertebra from the base rose, then sank with her lungs. I saw her hand curl to her chest, fingers laid across, covering a hollow no one touched. He replaced the can's lid, tied the rope twice, pulled the knot to one side, turned the knot face to the wall. That way no one snagged. He shifted the chair braced with brick, pushed it closer to the table's corner so it would not slip. Brick scraped the floor, clunk. He tilted his head, gauged the wind's path inside, then pushed the window open a span, enough for smoke not to back, but not enough for dust to sweep in. The cup of water stayed in place, untouched. The surface calm enough to mirror the gold speck through the crack. That speck sat inside the cup like a coin dropped without wetting. I nearly reached to move it aside, but did not. Here, men leave things where they hold, until there is reason plain enough to move them. He took from the hook a cloth, not white, not clean, but squared. He dipped its edge into the cup, wrung it once, left it only damp enough, then set it on the doorstep where wind passed cool. He did not hand it to her. He left it there. Whoever needed would reach. I heard sand in my teeth when I bit my tongue. The wind carried fine dust. It brushed her eyelids, leaving a faint trace on her lashes. She closed her eyes for one beat, opened them, did not blink. I knew the one about to speak would clear his throat. Here, no one cleared. No need. He dropped another small stick into the stove, then straightened his back. This time he walked past her, steps slow, each leaving dry mud flakes on the floor. He stopped at the door, looked at the fence posts, counted with his eyes. Finished counting, he pulled the door rope so the wooden latch bit deeper, but still left the door ajar, just wide enough for a hand. That gap kept the wind traveling the way he wanted. I stepped back from the frame, gave way. He went out to the porch where the burnt grass smell was heavier, stood a while. His shoulders dropped, not tired, only let loose. He took the hat from the hook, put it on. In this place, men put on hats before saying what did not need long words. But he did not speak. He lifted the empty bucket, stepped off the porch, walked toward the trough behind the pen. Inside, the cup still held the golden speck. She kept steady breath, Shoulders did not shake. I circled to the stove, cracked the lid so the fire could breathe. The hot iron touched my nail, burned a streak. I pulled back, smelled warm metal, saw the old smoke ring on the wall stand like an eye that did not sleep. I turned back to her, did not speak. I sat on the step where the damp cloth lay. The wind passed a corner, pressed it to my wrist, tested, then set it back in place. Left it. Whoever needed would reach. Outside, the sound of a bucket hitting water. Once, twice, three. He was pumping. The pump rod, worn, gave a soft creak at the top of each stroke, like an old confession. Each sound drew water into the bucket, fuller, surer. I saw her face tilt half an inch deeper into the blanket, breath still even. On the table, the iron tube rolled no more. Cap screwed tight, its rim shining from his touch. A few grains of dirt stuck to the sweat on his neck had dried to white streaks on his shirt, like chalk marks. I thought of chalk marks on stall posts, to remember which day to change rope, and knew he also remembered dates, even with those who never spoke. The wind shifted again, brought the far smell of burning straw. Here, when one house lit fire, the whole row smelled it. But today, the row was far. The crows were silent. Only the rope on the post gave faint sound. She pulled the blanket higher, across her chin. Her eyes left the golden speck, stopped at the table's edge, at the cup. But her hand did not move. I looked at the cup again. A fly landed on its rim, walked one circle, then left. No one chased it. He came back in when the porch's shadow shortened an inch. He set the bucket by the door, water lapping at its mouth. He did not look at the wall, not at the old smoke ring, not at the cup. He hung the ladle at the stove, handle turned out, as always. Then he stood in the room's center, fists loose, like a man who had set objects in their places, waiting to see if they would shift on their own. She turned her back, breath steady. I heard my own heart beat faint, like someone tapping a table far off. No one asked. No one explained. The golden light still lay on the wooden floor, stretched longer, not yet gone. Here, sometimes that alone was a full morning. Afternoon slanted down like someone pulled an old blanket light. He gripped her shoulder, calloused hand pressing just firm enough to guide, not squeeze, not hurt, but not allow turning back. Dust clung at his elbow, dropped grain by grain on the step, settled in the floor grooves. I followed, hearing his boot leather scrape the step's edge, a short sound, then silence. The yard still, only the loose clang of the iron dipper at the trough post, the horse already tied at the corner rail, head bent inward, snorting through nostrils, breath thin as smoke. The reins looped over the saddle in a familiar turn. One who knew would see that loop always faced the same way, so the hand would not catch on the knot. He cinched the saddle as one would bind a healed wound, slip high enough to face ahead. He did not speak, so the silence had shape, stretched from the porch to the hitching post. I saw on the horse's hoof a chip, small as a milk tooth. Such marks told of sharp stones under dust yesterday. The tail swished once, driving off a stubborn fly. The harness had been oiled, smell of tallow mixing with old leather, smoldering. The saddle bore dark stains of sweat, dried into mottled patterns. He paused, let her shoulder go one beat, then set it again, like testing the strength of a handle. She did not resist. Her eyes did not look at horse nor saddle, only slid past the low fence where weeds grew thick, forcing wind to split. Beyond, a faint line where sky met ground stirred in dust. Anyone who had waited would know that dust, not natural rise, but hoof-borne. For a moment he looked there. No squint, no hand to brow, only looked like a man receiving a bill whose sum he already knew. His hand left her shoulder, took the horse rope, checked the knot, turned the loop right, pulled it once more. Done, he turned to face her. Neither stepped forward nor back. She exhaled, faint, enough for me to see her ribs press cloth a point. Then he turned, walked to the chest by the porch. He took a sack from the chest, coarse weave, surface raised with knotted grain, hemp threads frayed at the edge. He set it on her hand, palm pressed against the fabric, then slid off with a faint scrape on skin. Inside were dry rations, bread pressed flat, surface showing white salt grains like sand, and a roll of clean cloth, tied with twine, the knot neat. I saw the back of his hand bore an old scar, running slantwise. Its color faded, edges whitened like thread. "Hold," he said, eyes not leaving the brush line far off. Just one word, not command, not offer, a word set down like weight in its proper place. She took it, thumb pulling the sack's lip in, clutching it tight against her belly. The bread knocked inside. Sound heavy, not crisp, telling it had drawn damp from the night. The roll of cloth sat at the bottom, stiff and cold. On the windowsill, a second bridle lay coiled, the loops touching. He lifted it, checked the tie holes, fingers passing each hole, like counting the years of an old horse, then set it down the same. At the yard's corner, the wooden horse racks leaned, their sides knocking funk short when wind swept. All in place, like letters memorized. She looked at the sack, looked at the centered knot. The twine was old, core frayed, each time bent. She ran a nail along the lip, did not open. The smell of dry, not for cold, but to keep the flap from snagging when his hand moved. Then he rubbed his palm on his thigh, twice, slow, like brushing off a faint dirt unseen. I heard metal strike somewhere behind, perhaps the iron tube on the table inside, quivering as the door shifted on the wind. The sealed silence of afternoon stretched, pressing small sounds flat. A lizard darted across the step, stopped before its shadow, then slipped into the gap between posts. She clutched the sack tighter. On her arm, faint bruises like fruit strikes on wood posts had faded, remembered only in hardened flesh. No one asked why they lay there. Here, some questions sounded like shots into a doorway. Men avoided them. He placed 2 fingers on the post top, tapped once, like marking time while waiting. The far dust held shape, now thicker. I could not count the hooves within, only saw the swirl thin, then dense, like riders pulling, then loosing. He tilted his head a fraction, as if exchanging with a number in his mind. She stepped half back, spine touching the horse's warmth. The beast did not startle. It breathed deeper, blowing a thin mist through nostrils, speckling her coat with dust. She did not brush it off, only pulled the sack's lip higher for cover. Cloth rasped dry against cloth. "Hold," he repeated, this time not at the object, but at the body's stance. She nodded once, small. I saw her face turn, jawline hollow a little, as if biting something not soft. Outside, the wind shifted, swirled once, dropped 2 dry leaves onto the yard strip. From the trail, a rider showed. Not the one he waited for. The horse small, hips sharp, black coat patched silver at the neck like old salt crust. On the saddle, a boy, hat askew, coat faded, hand holding slack reins like one new to grip, yet forced far. Knees rubbed the saddle for balance, each tug of the reins jerking his slight shoulders. He let go her shoulder. Hand drew back like pulling a knife from sheath without sound. He stepped into the yard, unhurried, enough for the boy to see him clear from distance. I saw his chest rise shallow, just steady. The greeting broke, voice of acquaintance. Not warm, not cold, just level enough not to fall off tune. The boy pulled the horse short before crossing the line between house and post. The check was clumsy, reins scraping the saddle edge with a squeak. The horse chewed the bit, mouth frothing dry spittle. The boy lowered his hat, nodded quick, eyes skimming her once, then stopping at him as if to find where to place words. He did not ask, from where, to where. He stepped half forward, took once left. She stood still, hand on the sack's lip, thumb pressing the knot, but did not pull. Her eyes followed the boy's hand as he rummaged the pouch at his hip. Young fingers burrowed deep, touched something hard, pulled out. Metal flashed under pale sun like fish scale. He did not hand it to her, nor to him, only held it, lifted, then lowered, as if checking it was truly what he was told to carry. He accepted the nod, as one accepts a mark of receipt. The boy dropped the reins into his hand and edged the horse aside, leaving a clean yard for the man's steps. The brush line far off split once, then closed, like someone stepping behind a curtain and staying still. The boy pulled his hat low, crooked against sun, showing a white strip on his brow. Skin untouched by sun, from days wearing it too deep. Such signs said he had ridden fast, slept little. He looked at the boy, not long, not short, then turned back to the porch. A thin silence fell across the yard, sharp and cold, raising hair on my arm, though no wind rose. Turn. The weight struck against the arrival, not matched, but enough. The boy left behind a small parcel, bound with hemp cord. The hemp was rough, tied twice, not at the side, not the center. The kind tied to be opened with a sharp pull, no knife needed. The parcel sat on the porch step, right where the sun had already drawn back. Its shadow had clear edges, squared, as if corners inside kept the shape from warping. She stepped half close, stopped, did not open. Only lowered her head enough for her nose to touch its scent. Dried medicine mixed with earth, a little resin. Not pine, sharper, bitter at the tongue's tip when breathed. Threaded with the smell of cloth, dried without sun, the cold scent of wrung river water. She inhaled short, let go, eyes unchanged. He did not explain. He circled past her, lifted the parcel, weighed it like a handful of cartridges, then set it back exact, hemp cord turned toward her strong hand. He led the horse into the stall. The animal followed quiet, hooves knocking wood even, tail brushing dust specks adrift, letting them fall like thin rain. At the stall door he pressed the latch thunk, then stepped half back, so the horse slid in by itself. That way, spared its shoulders from scrape. He knew. Inside the stall, the chain at the neck shook once, then settled. The body heat of the horse mixed with damp straw, iron of hooks, sharp saddle leather, and faint trace of human sweat, drawn into straps over long days. He hung the saddle on the peg, rim turned to the wall to avoid dust. The bridle coiled, laid on the saddle, glanced at her once more, short, not curious, as if counting faces, making sure the number matched. She still stood with the parcel, hand at the cord. Wind slid through brush, pushed a veil of dirt up to the porch step, then let it drop. On the step, prints marked like hurried script in dry mud, unread. I sat on the edge step, looked at the knot's angle. Pulled left it would snap open with a neat tack. Pulled right it would tighten, cut the hand. The tear had thought for the untear. I noticed her nails, short, blunt, but less soiled than mourning. Perhaps when he went to the stall first, she had rubbed them once with the damp cloth's edge to pass time. Such acts carried the shape of survival, unnamed. He came from the stall, hand wiped down his thigh as if washing in cloth. He paused at the yard's middle, cast eyes over us once, then past the brush line. The dust mark thinned as if turned. He did not say, "Gone." He only lifted the bucket under the eave, tipped it empty, set it where ground was dry. Done, he stepped on the porch, past the parcel, shoulder not brushing, hand not tapping post, into the house. She stood one more beat. I did not urge. Inside the parcel might be medicine, might be bandage, might be other. But the dry scent was strong, sealed. Here to open a parcel before the wind was not always wise. She slid her hand under, lifted it, felt its weight close in the palm like holding an ear of young corn. She set it on the sill inside, where the yard could not see, but a hand from the room could reach. She followed him a step, then stopped at the threshold, eyes to the posts, eyes to the hilltop behind brush, eyes where the trail vanished like thread into coarse cloth. Nothing else. Only the new silence falling, different from noon's. This one bore the weight of a message given, but not read. I touched my finger to the scratch on the step's edge, the rough wood rasp reminding me of other weights. No names tied to them. Only that each time a parcel bound with hemp cord was laid where the sun had drawn back, the house would breathe slower for a while. And tonight, the man would not bar the stall with the heavy iron latch, but with the old wooden pin, the kind that slipped in half a breath if needed quick. He did not explain. She did not ask. The parcel lay in shadow, hemp cord turned right. The horse chewed slow. Dust motes in the yard lingered, then fell, touching earth without sound. Wind rounded the porch, lifted a hem of her dress, let it go. I heard the breath of all three of us, uneven but moving toward one place none had yet seen. Here that was enough to call a night begun. Night tightened, like black cloth pressed smooth. Wind skimmed ground, no sound. He looked outside as if at something already known. A faint line at the yard's edge, near the third post, where night always lay thicker than the wrist. In the hearth, a low fire had been woken. Yellow light seeped from the stove mouth, crawled up the grain of the wall, stopped at the smoke ring black. That ring like a seal pressed into timber, rim dark, center pale, pinned there. This was the second time I saw it today. Now, not blazing, not reminding, only standing witness to something about to mark again. He pushed the latch a half-inch, enough so the wind would not press his chest. His other hand rested on the wall, paint flaked, found a familiar ridge, held his body still. From the corner, the faint seep of old gun oil, like needles kept too long in an open box. He tilted his head, listened. On the yard, dust shifted like someone pulled a thin blanket across ground. I heard his boot touch once soft on the floor, then silence. She pulled the blanket from her legs, rose. Hem brushed her ankle, damp and cold. She did not ask, "What?" She walked, stopped at his side, shoulder not touching. Her hand clutched the door's edge, little finger trembling, blunt nails scratching wood, a faint sound. He leaned enough for the hearth light to slip from her eyes. He spoke a word without voice, only air through nose and throat, then gone, like, "Wait." I went to the stove, lifted a short stick, turned it so the flame caught the dry part. The fire rose, but I kept it low. The yellow light jumped once, enough for the smoke ring on the wall to glow, then settle. The shadow of the long rifle on its hook cut across the wall, then disappeared, leaving my eyes at the shelf where the clean cloth lay folded. I remembered the parcel bound with hemp cord left on the sill at dusk, but I did not look. Tonight would not need medicine before it needed hands. He shifted his shoulder as if testing a coat. From the bed's head he pulled a thin wooden box, The lid slid with a faint swish. Inside, cartridges lay straight, round heads oiled. He took 3, not quick, 1 for the rifle, 2 for the pocket. The sound of metal on metal was half-eaten by the fire. He shut the lid, pushed the box back on the shelf, same spot as always, 1 finger's width from the edge. Outside, Rains struck a ring once, like a small bell in a coat. A voice came, words unclear, only falling at the end. Wind turned. The damp smell of iron blew in, the smell of night dew licking gun barrels, mixing with long-kept horse leather. The horse in the stall shifted shoulders, snorted once, then dropped its head to the wood. He turned his face toward her, eyes still on the dark beyond the posts. He lowered his voice without showing. I saw the pulse at her neck jump once, then sink. The yellow on the wall dimmed, as if something had crossed it. Nothing had, only the fire hunched for lack of air. I prodded a stick, let the flame climb 1 finger's length. The black smoke ring glowed again at the rim, like an eye open. It watched no one. It simply recorded. 3 figures moved into the yard. They came in a slant line, not tight, guns low, barrels down, as a courtesy feigned. Hats pulled deep, brims wet with dew, horse manes beaded small. Their coats shone with oil at the shoulder seams where straps rubbed. Boot heels pressed each flat patch careful, as if not to grieve the earth. He did not wait for them closer. He turned, set a short piece in her hand, the pistol cold. I felt my skin rasp at the thought of metal on her palm. The wooden grip smooth, old, pitted with mold marks. The trigger guard bent like a broken ear, edge glinting oil. He placed it, not tossed, not forced. His hand withdrew at once, leaving its weight wholly in hers. "Hold," he said. 1 word, dropped to the floor, gone. No if, no when. I watched her fingers. Her index did not slip into the guard. It lay straight along the steel, like a habit learned before. Her thumb brushed the safety, touched the small catch, then stopped, did not flip. The pistol heavier than it looked. Inside, old oil and powder had made a scent of their own, known to one who remembered. In the yard, the front man stopped at the 3rd post. He turned enough for moonlight to edge his brim, show half a cheek scar. He spoke short, level, like someone waiting in a saloon. No threat, no greet. The 2 behind stepped in half, shoulders apart, kept space. He stepped forward. He did not lift knees high, spared sound. His rifle lay along the right leg, left wrist loose on the stock, middle finger set on a fine scratch on the barrel. His head tipped low. I knew that stance. It did not beg, did not demand. It was a stance that bent the path of what was about to happen. She stood by the frame. The frame split at one corner, grain cracked, a splinter jutting sharp. Her barrel stayed down. Her wrist tilted just enough for the weight to rest in her palm, not tire. Her fingers numbed. I saw her throat swallow once, not pass. Not fear, just a grain of night sand stuck. On time, the man in the yard, long-standing, straw pressed below. So each word slid on a thin plate of metal, like brushing brass. He lifted the rifle with 1 finger, the move like raising a long familiar instrument. His shoulder dipped a hair, seat the stock right on bone. He did not aim long. He only leaned his cheek, took a line through a point unseen. The muzzle met air. One finger tightened. The shot was not as loud as one thinks close. The night ate half. The stove ate more. White flash gone in a blink. Left powder smoke heavy, like regret after words said. The horse outside jerked its head. The lead man staggered back as if tripped by an unseen rope, then folded. His shadow fell to the fourth post, breath cut. Knee struck earth, hand swept once useless, left a wet mark, like the set, not slow. The two shadows were gone from the brush. I heard small stone roll on the slope behind the stall. Then nothing. Only the damp iron smell stuck at the door, mixed with cooled powder, a thin film on the tongue when breathing through mouth. I pressed my palm to the table's edge, the wood polished by touch, the wood warm. She set the pistol down on the shelf. The grip met wood with a sound, faint, like a nail on a cup. She did not look at me. She looked at the crushed earth. Her lips opened, then closed. No word. I saw at her throat the knot still lodged from before, not yet gone. It would stay till morning, or till she needed to say enough. He went back to the porch, stood under the eave, where dew gathered on the planks. He wiped his hands on his trousers, then hung the rifle on the hook, barrel down. He turned to the stove, watched the low flame, as if checking if work remained. None. He did not say done. He only pulled the latch to its place, left a slit between the doors, for wind to move, as before. Night slid into the corners, the horse in the stall silent. In the yard, some beast shifted, twig cracked. On the wall, the smoke ring did not change. It stayed, mark of this house. Each season held a circle unclosed. I lifted the tin cup from the shelf, set it on the sill for dew, then thought again, put it back. No one thirsted now. One only needed not to speak. Here, that was enough to pass a night's stretch. He returned when the stove's coals were only red dim, his shoulder seam torn, threads frayed like dry husk. No blood, but sweat left white trails on his neck, drying to a salt edge like on a hat brim. He hung the rifle on the hook, barrel down, hand smoothed the stock free of dust, middle finger stopping at the familiar fine scratch, then let go. She laid the pistol on the table. Wooden grip touched wood with a faint sound. Barrel turned inward, safety still set. She turned away, looked at none. Her hem brushed the step. Dust lifted, then fell, for no wind stirred inside. I pulled the chair straight, legs clacking wood. He untied the cloth at his neck, sweat black, cold to my hand. He bent to the water tub, lifted both hands, poured along his throat, the salt line washed dark. He breathed out once, not long. I saw his shoulders drop a notch. On the shelf, the cartridge box still in place. I pushed it back half a finger. She went to the stove, cracked the lid, let fire breathe, then closed. No more wood, no less. The red flame curled, warm to a corner. The pistol lay still, oil along the trigger pooled to a sheen. I took cloth, wiped its barrel, nothing more than to keep hands busy. He touched the tear at his shoulder, pressed the phrase together as if testing if one pull would rip it clean. It did not. He left it. She washed at the basin, offered. The bowl sat, rim blurred with warmth. He left it untouched. I heard us breathing, each at a rhythm, none forcing the other. Night pressed deeper. On the wall, smoke stains layered like hoofprints on old sand. No one looked up. They did not need. They stayed to remind that this house had long gone without words. Morning, thin dew dotted the clothesline. He took her to the stall, not to leave. He only stood by the saddle, ran his finger along the girth, stopped at a fray fine as half-cut hair. "There," he said, voice like saying the sky would rain. No surprise, no warning. She bent to see. The cut was shallow, just enough that with a jerk it would part at the second beat. The blade had slipped once, left a ridge felt by touch. She pressed with a nail. Soft. The smell of warm hide rose, mixed with fresh grease, damp straw underfoot. The horse's breath fogged the bit, left dew on its lip. He loosed the strap, pulled to the light, braided thrice with twine, knotted off to the inside. So when the saddle cinched, it would not press the belly. He tested with full hand. The rope held. She did not say careful. She only stood angled, shielding the horse's face from the gust. The beast shook its mane, stilled. I opened the side stall, checked the wooden latch. Worn at the tip, I turned it 180, set the fresh end in the slot. At the corner, the straw sack half gone, I pulled the tie tight against rats. He walked the ground, stopped at a mark, a strange hoof, nails set flat, pressed deep. He pointed. "Last night." Not a question, a knowing. She nodded once, thin. They thought he would leave. Everyone did. But he tied another small bell to the post, black, soundless, only trembling in hand. He hung it higher than the wind's reach, so only one passing would stir it. She drew from the sack the roll of clean cloth, tore it into strips. Not to bind anyone. She folded each neat, placed them in a basket by the stall door. Left them. I looked at the outer gate. The hinges dry. I brushed on a line of grease. The gate opened smooth. The trail beyond the brush held wheel ruts pushed aside, footprints pressed over. A chicken scratched dirt, found a stray kernel, pecked 3 times before it swallowed. The silence of morning pulled the night's taut string, left a flat plain. That plain was not flat. It only held for now. "They'll be back," he said, eyes never leaving anything. His voice set down, like placing weight in the yard for all to walk around. Touched ground before the right reached reins. His eyes slid to the yard, then away. He stepped to the porch, not down. The boy unstrapped the saddlebag, set it on the step. Too light if medicine lay inside. He searched, weak hands, pulled out a bundle. Opened it, a strange scarf, clean, edges embroidered with letters not of this village. Stitch twisted, thread deep blue, thin and sharp, not dyed with the indigo leaves the nearby hamlet used. Edges waxed, straight as paper, fresh cut. The boy spoke a few words. Wind swallowed. I caught only ask and trade. He did not ask from who. He held his hand. The boy placed the scarf. He did not raise it to his nose. He looked 3 beats, folded once, then twice, embroidery turned in. He turned back, went inside, pulled the drawer, placed it in. The drawer struck thunk, cold. He shut it, not locked. Meanwhile, the boy stood on the step, eyes on the horse. The beast bit the rail, held, then let go, foam streaking its mouth. The boy wiped it with his sleeve, soiled. She stood in shade, hand on the post, nail pulled a splinter loose. She did not ask him about the parcel with hemp cord from before. She only looked at his sleeve, soap not known here, smell of stone well, heavy with alum, not of this village. The boy asked for water. He poured from the can, handed the cup. The boy drank twice, left a pale mark at the rim, gave it back, eyes sliding. He did not wipe. He set the cup where sun did not touch, let the stain dry. The boy mounted, boot slipped in the stirrup. The horse jerked, bit scraped the saddle edge once, then still. The boy tipped his hat, no greet, turned. Dust rose low from hooves, gone fast. I looked at the drawer. It stayed still. Inside, the embroidered corner pressed to the wall, half its letters folded. Letters that were no name here, not marks of the county tailor. The thread glimmered as if drawn through fire. Here, a thing too clean often did not come from the hands of those on the same road. He knew. He left it in the drawer. Afternoon, they sat on the porch. The sun's edge reached the step, then drew back, left wood cool. She cut dress cloth from the clean roll, measured by eye, no tape, matched to the old hem, marked with her nail. Needle passed each layer with care. Each stitch went, left hand held, right hand drew, thread whispered. She did not hurry. The line straight, the fold flat, like words folded, unsaid. He sat low, sharpened a short blade. Whetstone worn at a corner, water rippled dull, closer. She turned the fabric, hid the knot with a stitch small as a bean. The needle pricked her finger, one drop of blood. She pressed it to the hem, let it dry. Not wiped. He looked up to the yard, eyes past the gate, stopped at the brush. Nothing. He looked down at the knife, then at the chair's edge where an old screw sat loose. He tightened with the knife's point. 1.5 turns, stopped. He set the knife aside, fetched oil, brushed the door hinge. The door closed smooth, no grind. On the step, the tin cup dried since noon. I poured water, rinsed the lip mark, not for clean, not to let the afternoon keep a trace of one gone. I tilted, spilled. Soaked ground left no mark. The rooster jumped the step, eyed the needle in her hand, crowed once, then dropped down scratched dirt. Wind shifted soft. The smell of oiled steel and fresh cloth circled the porch, mixed with saddle leather. She folded the dress, smoothed, set it on her lap, eyes on the last seam, no correction. He lifted the knife, raised to the light, saw the line gleam. Enough. Not praise, not close, only measure. The stall stirred. No gunshot. Only steps retreating. Steps each with weight apart. One heavy heel, one light careful, one dragging grit. The bit's rings rattled twice, then gone. The gate clicked soft, like someone learned to close it without sound. He sat still on the porch, hand on the knife hilt, not clenching, not gripping. Just placed. Pulse near the wrist bone beat slow. I sat on the step, eyes to the dark lane between posts. The wind carried no strange scent, only earth overturned near the brush, roots lifted, then covered. The horse shifted in stall side, hoof knocked wood once, as if to say, still here. She pulled a blanket to the door, leaned on her elbow, face outward. No shoulder covered, no legs drawn. The stove light low, enough to show her ear twitch with wind. The pistol still on the table, safety set, barrel turned in. From the corner, the drawer held the scarf, wood flush. No gap, no mouse sound. Across the yard, an insect hit a post, fell like wet sand. I counted the steps between their retreat. 5, then 10, then 13. The gone. He tilted his head once more. No sound. He let his shoulders drop, hand still on the hilt, not for fear, not for weight, only so his hand remembered the warmth of what it must hold, if someone returned before morning. She looked to the road, eyes unblinking. I followed, saw the dark lane still whole, no shape. In the stall, the horse breathed steady. The night stood like a pin in its slot. Here, that was a night passed without need of the word peace. The yellow morning slipped again through the crack in the boards. Thin, narrow, same place as yesterday. It drew a line across the sill, crawled slow up the wall, then stopped at the old smoke ring. The ring was dimmer now, edges no longer sharp, as if the night had blown out some of its black, leaving a pale gray rim. I looked, then let it go. No need to remember. The house remembered. She opened the door. The hinge, oiled by him yesterday, slid smooth without sound. Wind entered, lifting the curtain's edge, carrying damp earth and a smell caught from last night, dry tobacco, saddle leather, a man's coat. The wind swept the tobacco away. She stood a beat, hand still on the latch, then let it go. The doorway opened just enough for one body, no more. The window ledge began to gather dust. Thin, a coat like light ash. She did not wipe it. She looked through the dust, out at the posts, then turned away. The dust understood. In the kitchen the ember crept outward, red fading like a sentence answered by silence. He poked the stove, added no wood. He closed the lid, left the vent narrow. The fire did not die at once. It only drew in, lay still, leaving the daylight through the crack to do the work. The yellow light touched the smoke ring, sharpened it for a breath, then blurred it again. I heard her fabric brush the step, small as breath through cloth. In the yard, the chain of the horse struck the post once, not restless. The animal lowered its head to the straw, lips pulling slow. The sound, scrape, scrape, steady, short. From the side stall, water in the trough, reflected a white line trembling. Not bright, only alive. The house door stayed ajar, wind slipped in, rounded the table, crossed my legs and flattened the ash on the stove. She passed the window, stopped. Her hand touched the glass a moment, cold. She drew it back, left a round faint mark like a coin. The morning light struck the bottom, drew a yellow streak like a fish scale. I set it near the door for wind to pass. A few dust grains fell to the water, drifted in specks, not sinking at once. I did not stir. She turned in, pulled the drawer. The thud, known. A strange cloth lay there, folded in 4, embroidered edge turned in. She took it out, let it fall straight. The stitch showed half under light, sharp as a new needle. She folded it again, lifted a corner, looked through the threads. Did not guess, did not call a name. She held it out to the porch. The yellow light slid off the smoke ring, climbed higher. The ring stayed, did not follow. It slept. I watched the line go over the chair's edge, the knife handle he'd left on the table, cut into the old wood's grain a moment, then pass. Nothing changed, except light was now here. She stood on the porch, bent to the basin, dipped the cloth. The water shifted color, barely. Cloth, clean, but not of this house's scent. She wrung once, only enough to soak. No scrubbing. The wind carried the dry tobacco smell farther off. The house lifted by a beat. The outer gate nudged, soft, not by man. Another wind came, tested the door's give, then followed the posts away. I looked again at the smoke ring. Still round, darker on one side, the stove's side, same as before. Only difference, I had looked at it one more time. That was all. He split new posts in the yard, pine, young bark, resin bleeding under axe, sharp. He raised each in line, measured straight by eye. No plumb line. The mallet struck the earth. Thud, thud, each blow spaced by a walker's breath. On the cut top, the rings lay tight, one post older than the rest. He set it at the corner, where wind struck first. She washed the strange cloth, hung it on the line between porch beams. The rope was worn, tied with a bow knot, loose in the middle. She wrung the cloth, water ran down her wrist, turned cold fast, in the wind. She folded the cloth once, pressed a soft twist, hung it. The stitch turned inward. She pinned with 2 wooden clips, so only the back met the wind. Drops fell to the step, countable, 7, then 9, then off. Beeswax scent from the seam rose, faint, under sun, not strong enough to cover pine resin from his work. The horse ate in quiet. It dragged a straw, chewed long, eyes glint. Shook the cloth once more. She judged the dryness with eyes, not hand. The hem still dark. She turned its side, pressed the stitch deeper into shade, not to hide, to let only the wind know. She wiped her hands on her skirt, leaving a dark patch that lightened again in breeze. I pulled the chair to the porch, set it under the post to watch the new fence. The seat shone where hands had polished it, a glint moving with cloud. I heard his breath, steady, the rhythm of a man long used to woodcut. Each post raised, he ran his palm from top to ground, resin trailing into thin strands, sticky. He scraped them on the axe's edge, the axe heavy, back dark, handle blackened near the grip from years of sweat. A sparrow landed on the rope, perched on a span without cloth. It chirped low, looked once around, then flew. The rope shook, cloth swayed. The last drop fell. She came, smoothed the hem, drew one pin, tightened the middle knot for more hold. Her fingers carried a trace of wax shining. She did not wipe. That shine clung to her ridges, could last till night. I entered the house, looked at the glass. Dust lay thinner than in the morning, but still lay. The round trace of a finger was no longer visible. The glass now returned only a faint shadow of the clothesline and a piece of sky wrinkled by wind. I did not raise my hand. I let the dust do the work of dust, cover but not erase. He drew the hammer lightly, set it into the last post to rest his hand. He stepped into the porch shade, bent for the water can. He drank a swallow. Water went down his throat, pressed back the breath. He held the can to her. She did not drink. She only pushed it back, nodded once, then fixed her eyes on the scarf. I understood. There are thirsts that do not need water. Ants at the edge of the loading step carried away a dry crumb dropped the day before. They went under my shadow, did not change course. On the wall, a ring of smoke faint, the surface there drier than elsewhere. To the touch would be grainy. I did not touch. The sun climbed high, gold light no longer falling in pieces. It flooded. Yet inside, it stayed dim. Dust on the glass caught the light, turned it into a dull veil. From the porch, she entered, walked across that strip of light. Shadow flickered once on the table. No word. When the sky leaned to gray, the wind had shifted. From the salt flat it blew back, hissed through the new posts, gave a thin, steady tone. He hung the short gun on the wall hook. His hand touched the wood stock, held a beat, then let go. Barrel pointed down, leather strap looped round the stock, not tight. The metal against hook gave a short, further inside. Useless act. Dust kept to its work. Dust had covered the glass entirely. None cleaned it. The pane now was another ground, dim, without reflection. Outside light shifted with clouds, but on the glass, only a gray blended with pale yellow. She stood before it, looked through, saw not clearly the line of posts. She did not tilt to find a brighter angle. She stepped away, like one who accepts a map where rivers have vanished. The strange scarf was dry. She unpinned it, folded in four, embroidery turned inward. She went into the house, opened a wooden drawer, placed it inside. The drawer gave a thud. She held it a beat with her hand, as if to let the warmth of the house soak through wood into that distant thread. Then she pulled her hand, drawer shut, not locked. He walked along the wall, his hand brushing hung things, reins, iron hooks, coil of hemp. He stopped at an old lantern by the door, wiped soot off the glass with his shirt hem. The glass cleared. But he did not light it. The gray outside was still enough not to need flame. He hung it back, turned the hook a quarter, faced the lantern mouth inward. Small detail, but the house knew. The horse in the stall shifted feet, straw under hooves rustled. It was full. It bent to the trough, took a sip, raised head, water still running in a strand off its lip. He passed by, touched its neck once, not a stroke, just a touch. The animal exhaled long, warm. The smell of resin from the saddle rose a hand's span, then thinned. I sat back against a post. On the wall, the old smoke ring still there. Round, darker on one side, not sharp as morning. It settled into the gray shadow of dusk, like an eye half closed. Looking at no one, looked back at by no one. It was what remained, though the fire was past. She pulled the door partway, left a thin slit. Wind slipped in, enough to stir the edge of a plain cloth hanging by the cupboard. Housecloth, no embroidery, loose weave. It tapped lightly against the wood, without sound. She stacked strips of clean cloth into a basket, closed the lid, placed it under the table. He sat at the low chair, bent to tie his boots, not turned inward. He tied not tight, the tie of one who might rise in night if someone knocked the post outside. Outside, the sky dropped another notch. Cry. Night reclaimed its ground without bargain. She pulled the blanket close, folded its edge to avoid dust on the step. She sat, hands clasped together, not tight. He leaned back in the low chair. eyes fixed on a low point of wall, where nothing asked to be seen. I sat between them, counted the small sounds left of the day. A faint knock inside the stove as iron cooled, a speck falling from the beam, touching the table, the horse sighing as it rolled to the other flank. 2 beats of wind stuck at the door's edge before it slipped through. None spoke. None cleaned more than need. On the wall, the old smoke ring stayed, not swelling, not shrinking. It kept the story at a measure. Outside, gray spread to the sky entire. Inside, dust veiled the glass. On the hook, the short gun lay still. And the house, by such small things, closed the day as one closes a drawer, thud, period, without mark. At last, the house was still. Golden light, caught in a wood crack, lit just a corner of the table. The smoke ring on the wall stayed round, darker on one side like the handprint of fire. The outer pane dusted fine, none hurrying to wipe. In this land, people heal by putting things in place, turning hooks to true, opening a slit of wind just wide enough. No explaining, no begging chance, only choosing, then holding. If this story has touched you, let it sit quiet in you a while. When you feel to, leave a small trace of your own, a short line, a thought, like one passing by and tapping the post outside, so we know you paused here. The rest, let dust do its work, and the smoke ring keep the memory. Tomorrow, the light will find its way again.